Welcome into Let's Be Honest. I'm your host, Kristen Cavallari, and today's episode is all about parenting. I have with me Dr. Aliza Pressman. She's a developmental psychologist with nearly 2 decades of experience working with families and healthcare providers. She has a new book out, The 5 Principles of Parenting, Your Essential Guide to Raising Good Humans. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. Oh, that was a weird sound.
I loved your book so much. I really feel like every parent should read it. I
Thank
was just
you.
taking notes. I was highlighting things, marking pages. I love all of the information that you have in there. So I'm really excited that you're here. And we're going to get to all of the 5 principles that you talk about, which are relationships, reflection, regulation, rules, and repair. But first, I want to start with something that you said in the book, which is being a happy person doesn't mean you'll be happy all the time. I love this because I feel like as humans, we have different moods all the time. We're not always perfect. And I think as parents, it's really easy to get down on ourselves when we're not perfect all the time. But you say that there's actually a benefit to not being a perfect parent all the time. So that's music to my ears, and I'm sure everybody else's. So explain that to me.
Yeah, I really, and I feel this because I'm a mother and I know the natural inclination to want to make everything perfect, to be the perfect mother and to make sure our kids are happy all the time. But what I love is that the science says that in fact, we need to have those imperfect moments of discord and disrepair and just mistakes in order to come back to connection, to get the stronger, more robust relationship with our kids that we're really hoping for, that builds resilience. So if you just think about working out and how when you work out, you are making little tiny tears in your muscles so that your muscles can grow bigger and stronger. It's the same thing. We have to have those little moments to grow stronger. And I kind of think about just like when we see our kids happy all the time, like when we see our kids laughing or just having a great moment, we're not like, I bet they're going to feel this way forever. But when we see our
Mhm.
kids struggling, we're terrified that this can't, like we can't handle this feeling. It's too much and it's going to go on too long. And for some reason
Yeah.
we lose that confidence that feelings
Yeah.
are temporary. So I just want us to remember we don't need or want our kids to be happy all the time. That would be so bizarre and impossible. But what we want is for them to believe that they'll be happy again. Like even in the
Exactly.
rough moment,
I
it's
love
like
that.
a moment.
Exactly. Exactly. And unfortunately, you learn to grow in those uncomfortable moments. That's
Yeah.
where the real beauty comes in too.
Yeah.
So it's just teaching our kids how to get through those moments. Well, so something else is, when you become a parent, you learn if you haven't worked through your own trauma, that obviously comes out as a parent. And
Yeah.
even if you have worked through your trauma, we can still get triggered. We still have those explosive moments, which obviously none of us want. But you talk about in your book how to stay grounded in the here and the now so that you don't have those crazy moments. You really talk about self-regulation and co-regulation. So tell me about the difference between the two and then how we can disarm our systems.
So I think co-regulation is the most important unsung hero of child development because we have this assumption that we're going to teach our kids how to regulate themselves, that we're going to give these skills to our kids. But what we don't realize is the best way to teach them is to lend them our nervous system while theirs is still maturing. And that, like, not with the pressure of, oh my God, I just lost my, I don't know if I can curse, but I just lost my cool.
You can on this podcast.
Okay, so I just lost my shit. That is not co-regulating. I don't want to lend that nervous system to my little one. It's going to happen. But the idea is that more often than not, you're able to pause and distinguish between a real and imagined threat. And the real threat is like your kids running across the street. And if you don't yell and grab them, their life is in danger.
Right.
But if they just like talked back to you or didn't listen about something or you had a long day and so you're just annoyed, that's not a real threat. So you can actually pause, breathe, and
Yeah.
like make a decision about what to do. And just that little moment, you're co-regulating. You're kind of letting them know that you don't need to say this is an emergency. And I feel like, particularly with younger ones or even teenagers that are just like out of their minds, losing it, when we can remind ourselves just internally, like you don't have to say it to your kids. In fact, if you do, I think they'd get annoyed. This is not an emergency. Like
Yeah.
everybody's safe. It just is uncomfortable. Then you can get yourself back to a place where they can just borrow that nervous system. You never had to say a word. You don't need to be creepy and calm. It's just like you took a breath.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know. And I feel like it takes routine, right, to get into that habit of like pausing and being like, okay, taking a minute for yourself. Like it won't be perfect every time, but the more often you can do it, it will start to become habit, is what
Yeah,
I've noticed.
totally. It's like you just keep practicing until it's wired. And then you give yourself grace when you lose your shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, let's talk about the five principles, starting with relationships. So just explain to me what that means.
Okay, so relationships, and you might hear secure attachment relationships or sensitive caregiving or attunement. It's all the same. It's all relationships. And we know even adults thrive with having at least one person that kind of will tell them if there's broccoli in their teeth in a loving way. Like
Right.
relationships are very important. You need to feel like somebody's got your back. So
Yeah.
with kids, relationship is so protective. It buffers the impact of toxic stressors. Like forget positive stress, which is like not getting picked for the soccer team or a new baby or change, but it's not harmful. There's also toxic stress, which is the stuff you would never wish on anyone, witnessing abuse or neglect, or
Hmm.
having a parent who has a substance abuse problem that isn't being worked on.
Yeah.
Something that's really, really big can move into the category of tolerable stress just from having one adult that you have a close relationship with. And that
Oh,
builds resilience. So, like, when we're
yeah.
afraid that our kids are like going to get ruined by a moment, we can keep leaning into, like, wait a second, no matter what happens in the world, if they have me by their side, not all the time, but just like in those heavy moments, they're going to be okay. And I
I
just,
love that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
have to lean into that a lot because, it's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
see them go through the things or even be the reason they're going through the things.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you said that children really just need one caregiver that they have a secure attachment with. And I think especially for a lot of single parents too,
Yeah,
that is so refreshing to hear because you don't know, you're like if the dad or the mom isn't in the picture, I mean that you're worried that that's going to affect the kids for the rest of their lives. And it will
right.
have an impact obviously, but if you have that secure attachment, that is so beneficial for these kids.
Yeah.
So let's talk about secure attachment. What do we have to be doing as parents to secure that relationship with our kids?
Okay. So being able to sit with them through their feelings, not fix them, but just sort of be the safe place they can share their feelings. And you don't have to like chase them to make it better, just like that they feel like they can come to you and
Okay.
they're not going to get in trouble for having a feeling is huge. And
Okay.
again, just more often than not, paying attention to kind of what's going on for them, naming their feelings when you can.
Okay.
Nobody needs to be annoying. Nobody needs to be like using scripts. It's just, and truly most people who are asking have, 65% of us come from secure attachment relationships. So more people than, it feels like more of us don't.
Yeah.
But more likely when you're curious about it, when love isn't conditional, when you're not like punishing because you're not pleased. And I don't mean like consequences, natural and, like discipline. So when you're trying to, obviously, and that's like one of the five principles is rules, and we'll certainly talk about that.
Yeah.
So it's not about
Yeah.
just like, you can do anything because I just love you, but it's about, I love you, even though there are times when I'm setting limits and boundaries, when I don't accept certain behaviors, but the feelings are
Mhm.
always welcome. So it's like all feelings are
Right.
welcome, all behaviors are not. I'm here. And that's it.
All right, ladies, let's talk Skims. Everyone knows that finding the perfect t-shirt can be such a challenge. I've always had problems, whether it was with the fit or the quality, but luckily, the perfect t shirt does exist and you can find it at Skims. From cropped silhouettes to long sleeve layering tees, there's a style for everyone. You guys know I've been wearing Skims for about a year now, and I just recently tried another one of their t shirts. My cotton jersey t shirt is a wardrobe staple for me. I reach for it almost every day, and the fit is so perfect because it snatches me right in at the waist. I've washed it a million times and it's held its shape. It literally fits like a dream. I cannot stop wearing this shirt. I recently got a couple new t shirts, and that is the cotton jersey t shirt in bone, which is kind of an off white, and then the soft smoothing seamless t-shirt in onyx, which is their black. And I just love the neutrals. I wear them with everything. Another thing that I love about these t-shirts is that they can be dressed up or down. I'm all about a little versatility, baby. So you guys shop the Skims t-shirt shop at skims.com, now available in sizes extra, extra small to 4X. And if you haven't yet, be sure to let them know that I sent you. So after you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select my show, let's be honest, in the drop-down menu that follows. This is a brand that I have loved for years, so I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it. And that is Purely Elizabeth. At Purely Elizabeth, they believe that one good choice leads to another, and that first choice can be as simple as a delicious bowl of Purely Elizabeth superfood granola. Elizabeth's journey started in the kitchen. She wanted to create obsession-worthy foods full of better-for-you ingredients and culinary taste. So she created delicious granola with crunchy clusters, ancient grains, and superfoods to make that first choice an easy one. The founder, Elizabeth, is a certified nutrition counselor and health coach. She's always intentional about selecting the nourishing ingredients that go into each Purely Elizabeth product and settles for nothing short of delicious. I love that Purely Elizabeth products are made with ancient grains, superfood seeds, and contain no artificial flavors. All of their products are certified gluten-free, and they have plenty of vegan, non-GMO, and keto-friendly options. Purely Elizabeth has a ton of granola flavors to choose from, like chocolate sea salt, blueberry hemp, vanilla almond butter, and my personal favorite, the one that I've been eating for years, their original. One bite, and I know you're going to be as obsessed as I am with their granola. They also just came out with a ton of new cookie flavors. Like there's an oatmeal raisin cookie flavor that I've just been crushing. They are very addicting, I will say. Visit purelyelizabeth.com and use code HONEST at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. That's PURELY Elizabeth.com and use code HONEST for 20% off. Purely Elizabeth, savor the start.
So is it even something where, let's say, yeah, your kid, breaks a rule, whatever, there's a consequence. And you saying after, listen, even when you get in trouble, I still love you. Like I
Yep.
will always love you no matter what. It's something as simple as that, even.
It's as simple as that. I mean,
Right.
in a funny way, like we have made parenting so complicated and
I know.
so intense. And it's almost embarrassing how not complicated it
Yeah.
is. Like the complication is that we're people and we're like filled with our own history and life and stories and childhood.
Right.
But the actual act of being in a relationship is just seeing the other person, hearing the
Yeah.
other person. It's like almost too simple. So it feels like we have to make it more complicated because something like this should be more complicated.
Right. Okay. Well, that's also very refreshing. Okay. Let's talk about reflection.
Okay. So reflection is the thing, it's our work. And it's the things that you talked about, like where did I come from? You talk about this regularly, like
Yeah.
how does this feel for me and why? And what do I need right now? And what's this about? And how was I parented as a child? What was that experience for me? How was my partner or co-parent parented? What might be happening there? What do I want for my kid? It's just questions. You're
Yeah.
reflecting and also asking questions about what your child needs and the pause. And you're basically just saying, instead of just making a decision about how to react or how to respond, I'm going to pause and think about it. And
Mhm.
just being thoughtful, just being
Okay.
reflective. There's no even, asking yourself questions, not all the time. Like, again, all of
Yeah.
this is I want to make sure that nobody thinks of this as like, I have to do this all the time. It's like more often than not, are you able to say, you know why I just lost it? Because I think what would have happened to me when I was a kid when I did that was X. And
Mhm.
so I'm just like worried that this means that I'm doing a terrible job as a mother. And so I'm now
Right.
angry. And we know that kids whose parents reflect back on their experience being parented have a better, like have a more, are more likely to have a secure attachment.
Which makes sense because that is, being intimate in any kind of relationship is how you form that bond. So that makes sense. Opening up, sharing your world with somebody else.
Yeah, actually, to your point, these are 5 principles for anything. It's not like
Right.
for adult relationships
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about regulation, which is kind of what we've also been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when you reflect, you give yourself the freedom to regulate so
Okay,
that
yeah.
you have now freedom to make a decision about how you want to respond intentionally instead of
Okay.
like deciding in the heat of the moment. Whenever you decide something in the heat of the moment, like you send that text, but without breathing, you say that thing, it
It's
just feels
always a
like,
regret.
yeah. So like if you're going to send it, at least breathe, at least ask yourself, what am I really doing here? And then if you've reflected and regulated and you're still going to send it, or you're still going to yell, or you're still going to do the thing, I feel like that is still modeling for your kids. I did this with this, like, I had the power of controlling myself and making an intentional choice. And
Yes.
now this is what's happening. And that feels so safe for kids that
Mhm.
we kind of are not acting like on autopilot, where we just like kind of do things and say things without doing it intentionally. It just feels
Yeah.
scary when people are just like flying by the seat of their pants and they're
Yeah.
supposed to be steering the ship.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, yeah. And then rules and with the rules, you talk about rules, boundaries, and limits. So what are the difference between the three?
Okay, so I think of rules as like the umbrella to boundaries, which is kind of the stuff we need to do between ourselves and others. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
invisible space that we create to make sure that there's a distinction between ourselves and others,
Mm-hmm.
and rules that are limits, which are here's the expected behavior I have for you. This is what society is going to need you to do when you walk into a room. This is, like how you can be in community with other people. You can't just be your own person who like walks through the world, not really noticing that there are other people around you, and not noticing that you've, walked into the kitchen while 2 people are in conversation and you spilled something on the table and then started, yelling. Like,
Right.
no.
Right.
Or, I mean, we can all think of like the little things where they're not trying to be defiant. They just aren't thinking about how their actions impact other people. They're just
Right.
appropriately self-absorbed.
Right. Right.
So like limits are like, hey, there's expected behaviors. Like when you take your clothes off and you're getting undressed, and you, instead of dumping your clothes on the floor, I expect you to put them in the laundry bin, because that
Yeah.
way your room is not disgusting and I'm not annoyed.
Right.
So,
Exactly. I'm
um,
working on that with one of my 3 right now.
yeah, there you go. But then
Yeah.
there's like the bigger picture stuff, which is more like if you just want to have fundamental rules and you don't care about the little stuff like the laundry, just think
Mhm.
about physical and emotional safety. Boundaries are for emotional safety and limits are for physical safety. Like
Okay.
you definitely can't hit your brother. That
Right.
is my limit.
Right. Another one I could probably work on at my house a little bit. But so while we're on this subject, I want to talk about discipline. I think as parents, we all want to know that we're doing things the right way. We always want to feel confident that what we're doing isn't going to mess up our kids for the rest of their lives. And so people always ask me how I specifically discipline my children. So I was really excited to get to that part in your book. So how can we effectively discipline? And then what are discipline practices that just don't work?
Okay. So tell me, how old are your kids again?
So my oldest is 11 and then almost 10 and 8.
Okay. I mean,
It's a lot right now.
yeah. So you have two that are like going through the beginnings of puberty,
Oh yeah.
and you've got one little one that you can hold on
Sh-
to at the,
Although I don't know, so I've got two boys and a girl, and my girl is my youngest, and
oh, there you go.
she's a tough cookie because she's got two older brothers. So yeah, she's actually my hardest kid.
I mean, it'll serve her later, but I'm sure it doesn't feel great for you.
Yeah, it's karma though. It's payback. It's fine.
So when you're thinking about like overall house rules, like for discipline, it's kind of like, first of all, discipline is to teach. It's not to
Mhm.
punish. We think of it as punishment, but it's actually our job as the adults who are sort of, again, steering the ship, is to teach our kids how to move through the world in a way that they
Mm,
can better interact in community, in a household. It's like you're not just raising one kid, you have three kids who
yeah,
need to be able to be in the same house with each other and
right.
you. So, and then they need to go into school and behave around other people. So it's a lot of it is our teaching and noticing what skills are they missing that I need to like build a little bit more of,
Mm,
so they get better at listening, so they can sort of move through the world with these expected behaviors. And so with the younger ones sometimes, and even older ones, it really helps to break bigger tasks up into smaller tasks. Like
okay.
sometimes you just notice, like, if I've asked you to, every time you take your clothes off, put your clothes in the laundry. I know this is a very superficial example, but whatever. Um, but if I'm telling you that and you can't do it, so maybe instead of feeling like you're just out to get me and I'm going to punish you, maybe it's okay, what can you manage? And you have old enough kids that you can just say, you're, I asked you to do this, you're having trouble. Tell me, what do you think you can manage? How can I
Oh,
be
I
more
like
helpful?
that.
Because then
Okay.
they're like on board with you
Yeah,
and you're keeping your rules. You're saying like, ultimately, I can't have clothes all over the floor.
right. Let's work
So
together to try to figure this out.
let's figure this out. And
Yeah.
then let's think about what the natural and logical consequences are if you can't listen. Now, again, this
Mhm.
is a very superficial example. So some people might be like,
Well, I'll
who
tell you what, I
cares?
have a bunch of laundry sitting outside of my son's door right now. So no, actually, I am all in on this conversation.
So there you go. So maybe a natural consequence, which maybe works a little more easily with girls than boys, is your laundry is not getting done. Like, unless you do it, it's not getting done,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
my job isn't to go through the laundry, to pick up the things, to do all of that. And so if and again, this is different households, different things, but it's perfectly reasonable and logical to say, here's what's the plan. We've talked about it. Maybe we made it a little bit easier. Like, instead of having to put each piece of laundry in the laundry bin, we've moved the laundry bin to a different location. And we say, like, at the end of each day, you do it or whatever.
Okay, right.
But,
Yeah.
but then if it's not getting done and you've shared this, you can just say, and when it doesn't get done, what do you think a logical consequence is here? To me, a logical consequence is then you're not going to have the clothes that you want to wear.
Yeah. Yeah. As
It's
simple as that.
as simple
Exactly.
as that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and so then they're motivated in one of two ways: to learn how to do laundry themselves, because they're
Yeah.
like, uh-oh, I guess I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
all your kids are old enough,
Yeah.
or to put their clothes in the laundry bin because they need to be respectful of the person who is doing their laundry.
Exactly. It's so funny too because two of my three they'll have four outfits a day or they'll try things on and then they'll throw it in the laundry hamper. And I just was like, listen, guys, the amount of laundry we're going through, I said, you're going to do your own laundry if you guys don't start hanging up your clean clothes.
Yes. Yeah.
Driving me insane.
That's also another point, is like, if you are trying on 10 different outfits, like, don't put it in the laundry bin or the
Yeah.
floor. It goes away. And otherwise, let's figure
I'm-
out like, do we have too many clothes? Do you need a uniform? Like, what's going on here?
Exactly. I'm more than happy to go that route. Yeah. Okay. I mean, those are great tips. And again, very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, which I love. Okay. I love. All right. And then the last rule is repair, which could possibly be the most important one. So explain that to me.
I think repair really is, because first of all, for our own souls, like, just like to
Yeah.
know how, like, when it all goes to shit, that the relationship is strong enough that we can come back and make repairs. And not only is it okay, but that relationship is going to be stronger.
Mhm.
And so, and in the repair research, which is true about adult relationships as well, but in repair research, they looked at the mother-child dyad, it's called, it's like the pairing, and found that they were only attuned, meaning like connected, 33% of the time. And the rest of the
Oh,
time
wow.
was, yeah, that's not that much. The rest of the time
Yeah.
was discord and repair. And this was in the healthy relationships. So the
Okay.
problem is when there's more discord, less repair. It's
Okay,
not,
right.
that you're always attuned, always getting along, always laughing, always connected. And
Mhm, mhm.
disrepair doesn't necessarily mean fighting. It could just mean like you're zoned out, you're not paying attention,
Mm,
you're not present. And so to me, to know that repair and discord is like the majority of the time, and that
yeah,
33% of the time is that beautiful connection,
yeah.
makes this whole thing so much easier when you screw up. Because you're
Yeah.
like, wait a second, this is normal. Like, this
Mhm.
is what happens in perfectly healthy relationships. Because here's what happens in unhealthy relationships. And there are plenty of people who might be listening to this. We might be among those people who can think back to early experiences where there was disrepair or fighting or disconnection. And it meant that there wasn't going to be repair.
Oh, yeah.
That like, that's it. And so then you
Yeah.
see in relationships where you're like, well, I guess this is over because there was like
Yeah.
one bad moment. Healthy, strong, emotionally connected people don't run away because there was that discord, because they've had in their
Mhm.
early experiences, hey, it was messy. It's a
Yeah.
messy dance. We stepped on each other's toes. We got separated. We're coming back together now. So that's why repair is really important. And it looks like sometimes turning on a fun TV show together and like cuddling up and laughing. And sometimes
Okay.
it's not like always like a deep conversation.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was always maybe not always deep, but definitely a conversation of like, hey, I'm sorry I yelled. That's not how I want to behave. But sometimes it is really just coming back together like that.
Well, just because it's untenable to expect that every single tiny little moment that's just like snippy and not your
Yeah.
favorite
Okay.
requires like, because then you'd catch yourself like apologizing 10 times a day,
Yeah.
and it would be disingenuous at a certain point. Like they'd be like, you're always apologizing but you're not changing. So
Right.
I prefer to like not take, of course, if it's big stuff, if you really blew up,
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
want to say something when they're ready, when you're ready. You want to say like, hey, exactly as you said, I'm really sorry about that, that had to have been scary.
Hmm.
And then explain it, like not as an
Yeah.
excuse, but just like, I don't like how I reacted and I'm working
Hmm.
on that. And I always love you. And
Yeah. Okay.
it's not caboosed with, but if you hadn't done X, then I wouldn't have
Yeah.
had to
Right.
yell.
Right. It's like therapy 101. You can never say but. Like I learned
Right.
that at a young age. Like get that
Right.
out of your vocabulary.
And I think parents don't mean to do this, but it just comes out as like, well, I wouldn't have to yell if you listened.
Right. Well, I've actually said before, like, hey, can we meet in the middle? Like, if you don't disrespect me, obviously I won't blow up. Like that kind of thing. Is that okay? Or it really is just, I am sorry I blew up on you. That is not what I want to be doing.
They're two different things. So separately, you can
Okay.
say, we got to work on how you talk to me.
Okay.
Because when you disrespect me, I don't want to blow up. So I'm gonna disengage to protect both of us. But I'm
Okay.
here, like I want to help you. I want to do the thing, but you have to talk to me respectfully. Like
Okay.
that's my
Right.
expectation. Separately, when you blow up, which you will, and because it didn't go right all the time,
Mhm.
you apologize, make reconnection. I
Okay.
really want people to think of repair as reconnecting
Hmm.
versus just like repairing something broken. It's more like putting something back together
Hmm.
that fits beautifully and is meant to, like a Lego.
Yeah.
It
Right.
just
Right.
came apart, but it easily goes back together. It's not like shard, glass and china that you need to glue carefully.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so sometimes it's just that apology, leave it at that. And later you could talk about like, by the way, we need to at
Yeah.
some point address the way you're talking to me.
Okay. That makes sense. I love that.
All right, guys, a brand that we've all heard before and we love, that is Facebook. On Facebook, I actually don't just scroll mindlessly. I've furthered my interest and I'm going above and beyond the scroll, and I'm actually getting to things that I love and I'm learning too. For example, I'm really into cooking. I love doing little recipes. I love doing videos for recipes. And I've found on Facebook there are a lot of like minded people, go figure. And I've found some groups specifically for cooking. We recently just made a chicken piccata recipe and we all shared it. And I love that because there's a real sense of community. I like seeing how other people do their recipes. I also think that way you can learn a lot from each other too, because people always do have their own little tips and tricks. And I like just seeing how people style their food as well, because that's something I'm horrible at. And so I am all about these Facebook groups right now. This idea that Facebook has is called social discovery. And I love it also because for me, it's nice knowing that there are actual real people behind the content. It's not just AI or whatever it may be. And so there is that sense of community and you do get to know these people. And I don't know, I think it's nice to be able to have that. So I would encourage all of you guys to create a reel, whether it's cooking or anything else. Obviously you can find groups for fashion, makeup, gardening. I mean, literally sky is the limit. So why don't you guys create a reel, post it, see how it does, and see if you guys can find your community as well. See where it will take you. So you guys, you can tap into the people on Facebook to fuel the things that you're interested in. All right, you guys, let's talk about ritual. As you guys know, I definitely try to listen to my gut, although there have been a few times in the dating world that I definitely did not. Probiotics can't help with most of your gut decisions, but if your gut needs a little support, Ritual has your back. They made a 3-in-1 supplement with clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and a postbiotic to support a balanced gut microbiome. You guys know I love Ritual and especially their Symbiotic Plus. When I take it, I just feel great. I don't have any bloating. And I even notice in my skin and my nails and my hair that everything is glowing and just feels really healthy. I take Ritual every single morning. It's the first thing I do so that I just get it out of the way. I don't have to think about it. I also recently just tried their Sleep Bio Series melatonin. And not going to lie, I've been sleeping like a baby. It's a daily 3-in-1 prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic with 2 of the world's most clinically studied probiotic strains to support the relief of mild and occasional bloating, gas, and diarrhea. Postbiotics provide fuel to the cells that make up the gut lining to support a healthy gut barrier. Delayed release capsule designed to help survive the harsh conditions of the upper GI tract. And it's all in one minty capsule, and no refrigeration is needed. There's no more shame in your gut game. Symbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/behonest.
Is the most damaging thing you can do for a child. And again, not every time. This is just, time after time. But having a blow up, let's say, and then not repairing it, kind of sweeping it under the rug and almost pretending like it didn't even happen.
Yeah, I mean, because over time, and again, just as you said, let's all keep reminding ourselves this doesn't have to be perfect every time.
Yeah.
It's more often than not, but more often than not, you want to acknowledge it because we don't do a great job doing what's called naming our affective state, which is just like saying what's happening in the feelings world. Just saying like, I'm a little unhinged today. I've had a long day, so I might be a little snippier, and it has nothing to do with you. If we all said that
Right.
before, just like being like really intense, but not naming it, our kids wouldn't feel like they're losing their minds. They would be like, okay, I'm not thrilled to hear it, but like, it sounds like you've got you going on.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
it's just like, we never want our kids to make a story up in their head. So like if you fly off the handle and then you just like pretend it never happened, it might make them tell a story that doesn't need to be told.
Okay.
They're
Right.
much
Like they
more-
might make it about them, you mean?
Yes. They might be
Right,
like,
okay.
I'm unworthy, I'm crap, my
Oh.
parent can't handle me, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But once you've put it out there, it doesn't need to be a long thing. It's just like, oh, I didn't love how I was this morning.
Yeah.
And most of the time in healthy parent-child relationships, your kids are like, what are you talking about? Like, it doesn't even
It is
matter.
so true. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I've had times where I'm like, so I'm so sorry. I'm exhausted today. I didn't get any sleep last night. And they're like, oh, you've been fine. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah,
mind.
it is true.
But
Yeah, great.
it's sort of nice that they know. It's a sign that you have a great
Yeah.
relationship. And like, there's a rhythm and a dance to kind of how you go into discord and repair. And a lot of the times, particularly with the kids as they get older, they're just kind of like, I know, we're moving on. Let's not
Yeah.
even bother. But it's
Yeah.
not because you're sweeping it under the rug. It's because you have such a good relationship that it's just like, I know.
Okay, that makes sense. And, I think too, like having accountability, owning your shit, I think it just humanizes us as parents too. And I also think that's good for kids just to see like, oh, okay, you're a real person. You also deal with shit,
I had the most sort of, sometimes I have these moments where I'm like, I cannot believe it, as a developmental psychologist, this is like the most basic, obvious thing, but I can't remember it in my parenting. And it's so sad. But like, I remember when my daughter was 9, I was so livid because I had come home, and this is probably way too much information, but I'm divorced, and the house, I had said like to my co-parent and my kids, like, yes, be here, do your thing, but I have people coming over for dinner, so just please don't leave it a mess. It was like this tiny little thing. I was so mad when I came home, and it was just a mess. And I definitely welled up, like my eyes welled up with tears. And my daughter looked up at me and was like, absolutely terrified. She was like,
Oh.
moms don't get sad.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, oh, I have done a disservice. Like, moms are people, and I love you. And this is not like because I don't love you and you're great. What you did, I feel, was disrespectful. And I got upset about it, but because I'm a person, but I'm going to be okay. I know how to take care of myself. But it was in that moment that I was like, I think I've been too robotic. Like, I think I've been a little too like overly in control, to the point where my kids are like, moms have like
Emotions?
different settings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what? Wow, that is so interesting. So did things change for you then after that with how you were with your kids?
totally. I was so
Wow.
much more, I think that's why I started to say like, you know, because I think I was thinking about like when my grandmother died and I was really sad, I cried, and then I came out and told my kids.
Mm,
And I think thereafter, I was like, if I do cry, it's because I'm sad, because this is something to be sad about. And
yeah,
also, I know that I can take care of myself. Like, you don't need to take care of this feeling. I think
right.
that's the scary thing, is when your kids are like, mom needs me, or she's not going to be able to be okay.
Yeah.
That would be
Okay.
scary. But mom is crying because her grandmother died, and that's sad. And like, that's
Yeah.
a very appropriate feeling to have. And so I think that's what changed about my parenting, was I was like, and I knew that academically or whatever, but
Mhm.
I definitely did not live it.
Wow, it's so interesting. That's a great story. Okay, you've talked a bunch about resilience, which I think is obviously one of the best things we can teach our kids. So you have 5 teachable skills to set your child up for resilience. So what are those skills?
Okay. So the first thing is, like, all the things we talked about are very highly linked with resilience. And so if you do nothing else and you don't even work on these skills, like, your kids are going to have a much better shot at they're getting the best support they can.
Okay,
And then,
great.
so just the good news there.
Yay.
So, and the skills they can work on are, I think of games, gratitude, autonomy, motivation, empathy, and self-regulation.
Okay,
Those,
amazing.
those are the skills that we want to build in our kids. Like, we think a lot of times about like reading, writing, and arithmetic, but if you can build the skills of gratitude, autonomy, motivation, empathy, and self-regulation, you are setting your kids up to be able to bounce back during setbacks, adversity, and big stressors, and even
Mhm.
the stuff we don't even want to think about that's traumatic. It's sort of giving them the foundation to have the best shot at that bounce back. It's not, you know, you can't control sort of who they are and their DNA and their genetics, and like can't control the environment. We can't decide that like there isn't going to be a pandemic, or there isn't going to be you know, some parent losing a job or whatever it is.
Right.
But so these skills are really important because they're so highly linked with bounce back ability, with resilience. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be upset, just like we've talked about. It's like, it's more like, you know, that you're not always going to be upset. That's what resilience is like, this is right now. And I know from experience and exposure and these tools that it's not forever.
And again, I mean, these can be simple things, even just gratitude. We can use that one. It's at dinner saying, hey, what's everyone thankful for today?
Yeah.
Very simple stuff.
It's like, you're hunting for the good, and it goes a long way. So like I have no idea who created the rosebud thorn thing at dinner, but it's the rose is, you know, like, what do you feel grateful for? What was a positive? And then a thorn is like, just because we're feeling grateful doesn't mean that everything's all roses. It's okay to also name the thorns. We just don't want to like only name the thorns or end with the thorns. So you also are like, what's your bud? What's the thing you're looking forward to? And so that,
I haven't heard the bud before. I like that.
Yeah, it's just like, because the rose, of course, we want to like, what is something that we feel grateful for today? The thorn is to just acknowledge that you can feel a range, but the bud keeps it, you know, forward focused.
Okay, I like that. I'll start doing that then too. Okay, and then something I'm actually very curious about is when your kid is going through friendship drama. And like I said, I have 2 boys and a girl. I did not know the boys have more drama. I am sitting here with both of my boys having a lot of friendship drama. So you have 7 ways to navigate those tricky moments. So I need all the advice I can get from you right now. This is purposely for me.
Will you tell me that, I mean, with whatever you're comfortable with, will you tell me kind of the circumstances so we could be really specific and helpful?
Well, it's my oldest. And I've sort of always known that, you know, friendships throughout high school, there's ebbs and flows of them. Like one minute you'll be best friends with someone, the next minute someone else. But my oldest will be 12 in August, and he's already going through that, and he's actually dealt with it for a few years. But the boys will be pretty mean to each other sometimes and say some really nasty stuff. And I don't even know, you know, what exactly has happened that now they hate each other. And I know they'll be friends again in 2 weeks. So it's just like, when he's, you know, my oldest has been kind of upset the last couple of weeks because his friends have said some really nasty things to him. And I know he has said stuff too. I'm not trying to, you know, just defend my son, but it's stuff that's really hurtful. So sometimes I don't know exactly what to say in those moments.
So he tells you when they say things?
Yeah, he's really good about, I know.
So that's relationship right there. When you were like, how do I know? And that already makes me feel like, you know, and not to worry people who have kids who aren't disclosers, but when you know that like your kid is going through something and they share it with you, that's the answer. So
Okay.
I think in that moment you breathe. That's the first step of everything in life that you can do, because then you won't, and it seems so simple again, but it's like, then you won't go into the tailspin of like, what does this mean? What do we do? What does this mean when, you know, when someone talked to me like that, or I don't know how nasty boys can be. I really didn't expect that. And so with especially emerging adolescence, take a breath and then first say, like, in whatever language you want, like, I don't love a script because I feel like it's not genuine
Authentic,
yeah. But like in whatever your language is, you're essentially saying, that sucks. I'm so sorry. You know, that must have been the worst. That must have felt terrible. Whatever language you want, not too much, say less.
Okay.
Really don't have a lot of opportunity to say things before they're going to be like, I'm done with this.
Okay.
And then see if that opens up more. Ask a question that's reflective. So like, you know, really basically repeating like, so your friend told you whatever the nasty thing was, and you felt, you know, you felt scared that he wasn't gonna be friends with you anymore, or whatever it is that you're basically repeating back through a question
Mm-hmm.
You're making sure that you understand what it is that's bothering them essentially. And you don't
Okay.
fix it. You don't have to fix it.
Yeah, I know, which it can be hard as a parent, but I feel like I do a good job of that. We're like, you have to experience these things. This is stuff we've all gone through. And I don't agree with the parents who insert themselves and try to fix
Like call
everything
the other,
for them
no.
because there are those parents too. And I'm like, I'm not here to jump in and save the day. Like they have to figure it out on their own at some point.
Yeah, and I think like if they say to you, I need your help. Like, can you help me figure out the best move? You can play it out with them. You can say, all right, well, tell me what you were thinking. And
Yeah.
then like you're helping them kind of, okay, so let's walk through the end of that story. How does it end? How do you feel about that? Like you
Mm,
can help them if they're interested, but you
yeah.
don't call the parent unless there's like one exception, which is bullying. But for
Yeah.
just being a jerk to your friend, no, do not get involved. Like
I know.
we're like taking away the opportunity for our kids to just experience childhood and like
Yeah.
the wear and tear of it. And I think you said something very important, which is in 2 weeks, they're going to be back to best friends or whatever.
Yeah.
I think we forget and we're like, our biggest job in those moments is not to have a big reaction because you want them to keep telling you. And
Right.
if they tell you something and you're like,
Yeah. They're
then they're
not
not going
coming
to tell you.
back.
They're
Yeah,
not coming back.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
if you crap on that other kid or you're like, well, that was, then they're going to be afraid to be like, actually, we have a plan next week and I'd like to do it. Cause then they're afraid you're going to be like, huh.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, last night, my Jackson, my middle, he was dealing with something because his friend, he thought he could trust his friend, and his friend went and told people some stuff that he said. And so he was really upset that he felt like he couldn't trust his best friend. And I mean, these are like life lessons. So yeah,
I
I mean, I
know.
just sat there and I was like, buddy, I know. And I was like, I promise you, you will eventually find friends that you can trust that will be your ride or dies. And I know this just sucks right now, but it's like you can't go in and fix that. Unfortunately, our kids have to have those
Unfortunately.
moments. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And, when you were talking about resilience and like what builds resilience, that's in the category of positive stressor. Those
Right.
moments build resilience. And if we take away those moments and we fix what's happening, they don't
Yeah.
get the chance to build the
Yeah.
muscle to learn that they can recover from the bigger things. These are the little things that
Yeah.
feel so big. And I think
Right.
when, we just have so much wisdom from experience that it's like hard not to impart that wisdom. But
Yeah.
particularly with adolescents, like zip it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the adolescence, the teen years are coming. I don't know if I'm ready for all of that.
I so know you are. You are.
You are the best. I could talk to you about this stuff for hours. I just think that your advice is so good. Really, everyone, you guys, you need to go out and get this book and tell
Thank
everyone else
you.
where they can find you too, because I know you have a podcast as well.
Yes, I have a podcast called Raising Good Humans. Even though the book is called The Five Principles of Parenting, there was another book called Raising Good Humans that was not by me. So it's a little confusing, but I have a podcast called Raising Good Humans and an Instagram is at Raising Good Humans Podcast. And the book is The Five Principles of Parenting. And I'm just here. So hopefully I
Amazing.
can be helpful.
Yeah, well, you are. I think you really help so many people. So I really appreciate you being here so much and just keep being such an inspiration for parents out there because you really do make a difference. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.